残酷な天使のように
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Absolute Territory podcast. This week it stands for Absolute Territory because we're doing wrap-ups, and we're lazy and we don't want to do an at every time because
why you expose us?
Listen, the listeners have a right to know. Is all I'm saying.
Transparency
in media. Today we are going to be talking about the winter 2018 season. I always get confused, right? Because they have like fall 2017 and then winter 2018, and I'm just like, I can't remember if winter starts in 2017 or 18. It's fine. You know what? It's fine.
It's winter 2018.
It's the winter 2018 season, and all of the things that we watched from that, which was not a whole lot actually. I got really busy. You were busy. It was a problem.
It wasn't in the stars, but that's okay. We did our best.
It got super hectic, but that's okay because there were a lot of good things to watch, and we watched all the good things.
Yes.
Mostly.
Yes.
Mostly. But before we get into that, how have you been? What have you been up to?
So the convention is over and I can finally relax, which is a great feeling. I like not scrambling for art and cosplay. Which in the end, my cosplay didn't even pan out, so I'm going to do that next convention, which next time I'm going to be at Animazement in North Carolina. Holla.
It's tragic. Also, I totally forgot that we have to introduce ourselves at the beginning of the podcast, but that's okay. We'll just leave it off this time. Who cares?
They know who we are.
You know who we are, probably. It's okay. We'll do it properly next time, I swear. Yeah. How about that? You know what? Is that it? Is that all you've been doing? Just con stuff? Okay.
Yeah. How about you? Soup. There, I introduced you.
Well, thank you, Renu. I have to make it sound like I put your name in post as if I forgot it just now.
Why, thank you, Renu.
Why, thank you, Renu. No, I've been good. I have been over the past 2 weeks back to school. Basically, like my life has become school again, and really, I don't have anything more exciting to say about that. Like, I had to read a bunch of novels, and I'm pretty hyped for that. Mm-hmm. I'm taking a class about speculative fiction, which is pretty cool. I'm taking a class about Kafka, Franz Kafka, famed German writer, German language writer. I guess he was from like Prague, and he spoke German. Whatever, it doesn't matter. I'll know more about Kafka after the class than before it is all that's really important. Okay. And I'm taking another class called History of Animation, which is interesting. I didn't know that it was going to be History of Animation. I just took a class that was titled Special Topics in Film. I was like, that sounds interesting. I'll take that. And then it turns out it was about animation, and I'm just like, well, this is up my alley. Unintentionally.
Yeah. That's cool. That's more to add to our podcast later.
Yeah. I mean, it's about Western animation, but we can still talk about that. I guess
still
technically,
talk about it.
It's it did just dawn on me that we do. I did like purposefully leave it kind of ambiguous, but we really don't only have to talk about like Japanese animation and Japanese
exactly.
Video
We're
games.
not limited, despite being called Absolute Territory Podcast.
Right. Like, it's a podcast about the study of modern visual culture, which could literally be anything, really. We could just do an entire podcast episode about Anish Kapoor's The Bean. I don't remember what it's actually called, but it's The Fucking Bean. It's like the one in Chicago.
You want to make... Yes, I have been to the bean. But
Is it actually called the bean?
yes, it is called the bean. It's bean shaped. It's a bean.
Well, okay. Yeah, that's anyway. Yeah. Technically we could do I mean, that wouldn't be very interesting because all I have to say about it is it's big, oblong, shiny, reflective, and made by Anish Kapoor, and Anish Kapoor makes pretty okay art, but he's also a giant douche waffle.
Oh. I did not know about this despite having visited the bean.
I mean, I don't think there's a plaque in front of the bean that's just like, and this is everything that Anish Kapoor has done wrong, right? Like,
The douche waffle.
Yeah, douche waffle Anish Kapoor. That's his middle fucking name.
Oh.
You know, I made it a New Year's resolution to swear less, and it's already just sort of down the toilet at this point.
Did you make that a resolution?
I'll keep trying.
I think the best way to go about it is just to cut it out entirely.
I can't edit that out and it doesn't. It makes
No. I'm talking about like if you actually wanted to hold up to that resolution, is to cut out swearing entirely.
Oh, I mean that's the end goal, to cut out swearing.
You just gotta go cold turkey, my dude.
At least generally for the podcast, if for no other reason than having to mark the podcast as explicit every time when it's not an explicit podcast is annoying. I just gotta stop using bad words.
Please be family friendly for the families.
I need to be family friendly so that the children can listen to us talk about things that make literally no sense to anybody under the age of 25.
Still appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, if I was introduced to literary readings of media at a younger age, I'd be fucking amazing at it. I did it again. I'm the worst.
See, you make fun of me for being family friendly, and here we are. Here we are, Soup. It's just that I get really excited, and it's the only way that I can express my excitement about the world. Just bleep it all out. We'll be family friendly then.
Oh, you're right. I could totally just bleep it out. No, that would be annoying to listen to. In fact, I'm going to go as far as to say that'd be fucking awful. I'll start a new next episode, I swear.
Next episode resolution.
But yeah, let's talk about what we watched.
Sure.
Not enough, probably, because we were distracted and busy, and that's just how life goes sometimes. Sometimes you just don't get to watch all the anime you want to. That's just what being an adult is like. But you know what? It's okay, because this season was actually really good. There were a lot of really good shows this season.
Yeah. And I'm glad that we were able to get in as many as we could.
We did a lot of work.
We did. It was work, but it was enjoyable work. Like,
I mean,
we can't call it work.
I was gonna say, is it work if we don't get paid for it? I think so, but
if we don't get paid for it and it's a hobby and it's enjoyable,
right? It's really, people should be paying us. I think what we should do is we should just launch a Patreon where the end goal is I cosplay as Futaba.
Sure.
It's like if we make $500 a month or whatever.
Yeah, I've been wanting to see you cosplay as her.
I mean, I have the jacket, so I've done the hardest step, really, I think. The first show that we're going to talk about is A Place Further Than the Universe, or as we will refer to it from now on, as I'm decreeing at this very moment, Antarctica, the Antarctica anime, because I'm not going to say A Place Further Than the Universe every time.
I agree. I actually keep forgetting the actual name, so I've only been referring to it as the Antarctica anime.
Yeah. Even though technically I could, because, you know, I've memorized the entirety of Jugumu's name. Which I will not do right now, because that would take up a solid, 2 minutes. But actually, I think I've gotten it down to the point where I can get it done in 30 seconds or less.
Could you please do that for the outro?
For the outro?
Yeah.
No, I'm going to stick with the current ones I have. Because I know you hate them, but I love them so much. Yeah.
But-
So, A Place Further Than the Universe, or Antarctica, is basically about a group of girls who follow one girl's dream to go to Antarctica because her mom went there and wrote a book about it, and she died there. Tragic. But it's this sort of, coming of age story. But that doesn't do it any justice whatsoever.
Yeah. The description doesn't describe how actually good this anime is. Well, the mom goes missing.
She goes missing in Antarctica. There's only sort of one possible way that ended.
Well, yeah, but the ambiguity of that specific thing is why the daughter decides to go to Antarctica in the first place, because she still holds on to that belief, like, oh, I can still find my mom, even though it's basically impossible that she's alive.
I mean, yes, that I think the ambiguity of it is really important.
Yeah.
There is this sense of, because it's not just about coming of age, but it's coming of age also intertwined with dealing with feelings of loss and grief.
Yes.
And it's handled in such a way as to make that actually good.
Yeah. And I love the way that they explore the bonds between the girls too. Like, it's like all intertwined with their friendship and how that develops and what friendship is actually defined as. And they like have different ways of approaching it and trying to figure out what exactly their bond is. And then it just, I don't know.
Right. There are a lot of sort of like intertwined themes. And they're all handled and executed in a way that's like really great.
Yeah.
When it comes down to it, it's a piece that is executed very well, because I think a premise like this has the potential to be very good, or just sort of trite and not very interesting. But it gets you invested in the characters and it gets you invested in the story, and by the end, you're crying.
Yeah, it felt so fluid the way that they told the story, and from my perspective, I didn't have a single issue with the pacing. Like, it was
not at all.
An enjoyable ride, all the way through, and it felt really well paced the whole time through, which is why it made it all that more enjoyable.
Yeah, I think the pacing and the direction of the show are really good.
Yes.
There's never a moment where I feel like this is going on for too long, I want to move on. It's
right.
Every scene I feel like never overstays its welcome at the very least.
Yeah, it was exquisite. Like even from like the first few episodes that we watched, I was like, the pacing is so good. Like, the storytelling's already good, but the pacing is just like perfect, and then they keep it up all the way until the end, which I love.
Yeah, and as far as that goes, having that be an original anime is both like there's a sort of feeling of I guess like uncertainty there, right? You're not really sure if you can pull that off, and at the same time it's kind of an advantage because you get to set the pace.
Right.
Yeah, no, I love it, and there's okay, so there's some qualities to it that I think I love. Okay, and I'm gonna pick favorites here.
Okay.
And we're gonna talk about this later, but I actually preferred A Place Further Than the Universe to Violet Evergarden because it like Violet Evergarden I feel like is technically very proficient. It's shot very much like a movie, despite being a TV series, and it's very good. And the themes that it deals with are similar in a way, but I feel like the thing about A Place Further Than the Universe, or Antarctica, which I said I would do it, and now I'm just saying the long-ass name over and over again, because I'm the worst. The difference between them is that the difference between them is that Antarctica is genuine and heartfelt. Not to say that Violet Evergarden isn't, but it's in a way that's so relatable and hits so close to home, because these are feelings that are not even remotely fantastical, right? This is not a scenario that, despite the fact that it's kind of like, oh, you're going to go to Antarctica, right? Like, that's way out there. At the same time, it's so within the grasp of a normal person, right?
Yeah.
Like a normal person will not go to war and be a weapon of war and a child soldier and have their commanding officer die. But
right.
everybody knows what it feels like to not reach your potential or to cling on to some hope of something where you know it's impossible, but you might still be able to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have to completely agree with that. Like, in terms of animation quality, I would say that Violet Evergarden is more polished.
Which is unfair, I would say, almost, because KyoAni.
Yeah. Exactly. That's an unfair assessment, but it's an assessment that I would have to make regardless because they're both finished anime. But in terms of like the story and whatnot, like I would have to give it to the Antarctica anime because I feel like even if they put it in a similar setting as Violet Evergarden, which is a little more like historical, fantastical, or whatever have you, I would still be able to relate to the story of these girls more than I would to Violet. Now, that's not to say that Violet is a bad character. Like, she's a very good character, and she's definitely the central driving force of that show. But I think the story told by these 4 girls going to Antarctica or just going to a new adventure beyond anything that they could ever imagine is a lot more compelling for me.
Yeah. It's very much a story about both the limitations of humanity, right? And also just the incredible lengths that one can go to pursue something, right?
Yeah.
It's amazing because it everybody has like felt these feelings that these girls feel, right? Like everybody's been in a position where like something, right? You feel like you have to go and get out there and do something before you're old, right? By the time that all of the characters get to Antarctica, because they do get there, obviously, by the time they all get there, they've all totally grown as people.
Yes.
And it's so noticeable and so well written and so subtle too, I think, despite also being, very noticeable. It's not in your face. And it also has to do with, how people deal with these different emotions in these in such vulnerable years of their life. Yeah,
it's awesome, and it's interesting that we make that comparison to Violet Evergarden because they are these girls are around the same age as each other. Violet versus the 4 girls in the Antarctica anime.
I mean, Violet Evergarden is 14, which is just not okay.
Listen, she's 14. We still haven't gotten over that. But like, they also both deal with the one of the main characters dealing with grief, and I think they handle it very differently, but both handle it really effectively.
And I wouldn't say I don't think that Violet Evergarden was necessarily a weaker show. It was just a different show.
Right. Exactly.
But the scene in Antarctica where like the main girl, I guess technically Kobuchizawa, I think it's either Kobuchizawa or Kobuchikawa, whatever. Who cares? That one, Antarctica. They call her Antarctica. There's the scene where.
Keep going. It's fine.
There's the scene where she is incredibly anxious before arriving in Antarctica proper because she is wondering if she's in Antarctica, but she, like going to the base where her mom disappeared, essentially, right? Because she's anxious about what if nothing changes, right? There's this anxiety surrounding what if I don't feel anything, right? And that's the scariest thing to her, which is that I'll just feel this way, the way that I am now for the rest of my life. And obviously, that that's not the case, right? Because that would make for not a great story. But when she gets there and takes the laptop back and has that scene where she's seeing all of her emails popping up is so well done. And that's maybe one of the most like beautifully written scenes that I've seen in such a long time.
Yeah.
Even thinking about it now like I'm getting kind of choked up about it.
Right, me too. I'm feeling the emotions rush to my head. Yeah, it's so well done because it's not like, because right before that they foreshadow or they show that there was an unread message from her mom, and you, or at least I thought that would be what she would see, is like the unread message, from the outbox or whatever. But it's not that. It's like all of these, like it's like 1,000+ attempts from her reaching out to her mom, and that's like so telling, and it's so like that's, it's like a record of all of like her stages of like coping with her mother going missing. And oh my god.
It's also such a good scene because it flips on its head this traditional idea of what would happen there. This
right, exactly.
Right. It's the prime example, I think, in probably recent anime of showing and not telling. And it does so by flipping the traditional conventions of what would happen in that scene on its head. It's no longer right. And she gets the laptop and she's just like, maybe I'll like, this is a memento of my mother. Right. And there's this sense that you'll get the feeling that she'll get some kind of closure out of it. And she does. But us as an audience, we get to see her love for her mother and not necessarily the other way around. Right. We get the subtle tells of like, her laptop has the photo of them together. There's an unsent message in the outbox, but it's that scene where all the emails start flooding in.
Yep.
Which is so powerful.
Yeah, because ultimately it comes down to, it's this girl's story, and it also like comes down to the fact that like up until that point, for her at least, like it's not, you don't, when you deal with grief or the loss of a loved one, you don't necessarily get to say goodbye, right? And so we expected something on that laptop to basically be like a goodbye, like that closure, like you mentioned. And it's for me, it's more realistic to have like a loss in which you don't necessarily have that moment. I mean, of course, in real life, there's times when you do, but when someone goes missing like that, you don't. And it's so realistic too to show like how she would have kept trying to communicate with her mother and not have any sense of what happened to her, and to keep reaching out to her and keep believing that she's there.
Yeah, and I also love that when we see the email that is like going to be sent to her, that is finally sent to her, it's not what you think it is. It's a picture of the aurora, and it's just an unfinished email that's just like, it's better in person. And she's like, I know, like I'm here. And it's such an amazing way of wrapping everything around to the like beginning and creating this incredibly satisfying and unexpected to some degree, emotional conclusion. And like, it's how you write a fucking story.
Yeah, like, because by that point, she has already gained her own closure. So, like, the photo from her mom is just like, it's just like the cherry on top. It's like, I mean, I didn't need this photo, but it's funny that I have it now, that I've already grown as a person and come to terms with my mother's, loss.
Right. Yeah, and I love everything else about it, too. Like, the animation, it's good. It's obviously not Violet Evergarden, but nothing is. Like, literally nothing in the world is Violet Evergarden.
Yeah.
Except for Violet Evergarden. The music, too, I think is rather appropriate. It cuts in at all the right times, and it has all the right emotional notes to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not standout necessarily, but it works.
Right.
And all of the other characters are done very well. Especially the main three, who obviously all have their own issues to deal with. And I love that the sort of coming of age journey that results from that is it uses the framing of Antarctica as a place to create this sense of physical distance, which in turn allows us to see Antarctica as a very metaphorical place, right? Like this is it could technically be anywhere. But because it's the furthest reaches of the planet, and as the title says, it's a place further than the universe itself, right? And at the same time is within grasp is such a very interesting concept. It's like it's totally this place of both, separation from society and the harsh, cold unforgivingness of the Antarctic, but also it's a place where, people go and they're not the same when they come back because something has changed. And, there's something important in that.
Yeah.
Like, Antarctica is a place that never changes, right? It's always the snow-capped, rocky desert area. As a place, as a metaphor, as a catalyst for human change is very powerful, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's also just a great example of, one, how you write characters, because they all interact with each other in like pretty consistent ways, and they all interact with each other, which is important.
Yes.
Some anime are pretty bad at that. They're just like, main boy is the only one who matters. No, it's about a group of people, and they all matter to each other, and they all interact with each other and the people on the crew in different ways. And also, it's an amazing example of a story can be predictable and at the same time be good and enjoyable and well executed. And still have surprises and twists. It's not, okay, obviously when you read the premise, they're going to go to Antarctica. And when you watch the first episode, she's going to get some kind of closure for her mom's death. Those are the two things that you know for certain, right? And you meet Kimari, and you're just like, okay, she wants to get out there and do things. Obviously, she's going to go to Antarctica too. But the ride is so thoroughly enjoyable, and it's executed in such a way as to be compelling because it invests you in the characters and it invests you in their goals.
Yes.
So when they happen, it's not that it feels cliche; it feels satisfying.
Yeah.
It feels good.
Yeah, and the girls themselves are so funny. I adore each and every one of them.
They interact with each other completely like real friends would interact with each other. They're just constantly giving each other shit, but also being there for each other when they need it,
Yep.
And I love Antarctica, the characters, like, just complete and total awkwardness when it comes to other people, but also showing that that's kind of a strength, right? There's a sense of, I'm bad with people, but also being bad with people allows me to be blunt and honest with them, and sometimes that's what people need.
Yeah. She gets to be one of the most realist characters when things are going bad, and it's really incredible to see because sometimes there's a moment when you gotta slap some sense into your friend.
Right. And the way that they help each other grow too is really great. It's I love this. I love this anime.
Yeah.
In a sense, it's very similar to, I think, Space Brothers, which I've never actually watched, but the general premise of it seems very, very similar in that they're both kind of about, humans challenging their limitations and growing, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, we should watch Space Brothers. I've been wanting to watch it too.
And I think that's
cool.
I think that's it. That's all I have to say for now on A Place for the Universe. I might honestly want to revisit it and talk about it more. We might dedicate an entire episode to it. Yeah. But for now, that's all I have to say. Let's talk about Violet Evergarden. And it's not next on the list, and we also didn't finish it, but I feel like it's kind of an apt time to talk about it.
Yeah.
So Violet Evergarden is similar, but not the same. It's about a girl who was essentially adopted by this military dude and became a child soldier who killed a bunch of people. Also, she's 14, and she does not look 14. And also, if you look at the light novels or whatever, it's even worse. She just looks older.
Yeah. I cannot. Why did they make her 14, Sue?
I don't know. I can't fathom for the life of me why they decided to make her 14, because there's nothing about the show or the story or the character of Violet Evergarden as having to be explicitly that age. She could be anywhere from 14 to 26 and I would believe you. Or she would be anywhere from 18 to 26 and I'd believe you. 14 I do not believe.
Yeah, I think for the story's sake, because she's a child soldier, right? Like, they had her. They didn't want for her present time to be too far removed from her child soldier time.
I think that makes sense, right? And
I think that would be the logic.
I'm sure that that's the reason why they did it.
Mm-hmm.
But
she doesn't present herself as a small teenager. She presents herself as a young lady. Like, I mean,
to be fair, I think that's the point.
Yeah, and
I don't know. I
she
still
doesn't
think,
even look.
I still think. Listen. 16, I would have believed. 14 is a literal child. It's. I mean, okay. It is important that she is close to the trauma, right? Yeah. But like 14 is still too young to be in the army. You could just make her 14 then, and then now she's like 16 or whatever. Okay.
Yeah,
we're done talking about her age because we're just gonna keep complaining about it.
Yeah.
I think it's important that she's close to her trauma and that also she doesn't understand it at the start. And obviously, like, I have a soft spot for stories like this about people like learning about humanity and et cetera, mushy gushy human shit. But I guess we'll start with the animation actually, because it's just stellar. It's gorgeous. It's probably the prettiest thing that has ever graced a serialized television series ever.
Yeah, it's very beautiful.
I cannot think of anything that has ever been on the air, like airing weekly, that has looked anywhere near as good as this. Different, yes. And technically proficient in other ways, of course. But as beautiful, like flat out, no. It is a treat every time I see this. Every time I see a scene, it has the usual KyoAni polish, and they have a kind of weird structure as a studio when compared to most other studios, because they do all of their stuff at once and then they release it after they've done all post-production. So that's why it's always so polished, because they essentially just do it in advance. Yeah, which makes sense, really.
Yeah.
But I guess it's not viable for most other studios. But yeah. But they really knocked it out of the park. Even compared to other KyoAni works, it's just stellar.
Yeah, it looks like the full evolution of what they've accomplished up until now, and just like ramped up to an 11. And it's really, really awesome to see. And I really hope that they get more opportunities like this to just keep topping what they've done before.
Yeah, I mean, it's the thing about it is that every shot looks amazing. You know, it's very detailed, it's gorgeous, and there's a lot of love and attention taken when, you know, looking at both the characters and their designs and expressions, and also, you know, background and scenery. And these are things that aren't necessarily as important, but I think in Violet Evergarden they do serve the purpose of being there to give the whole series, you know, the whole show, a sense of both historicity. You know, it's like, it feels kind of like you're watching a historical drama, and at the same time it also feels like it's literary. There is a literariness to the attention to detail in the backgrounds. It feels like purple prose, but in visual form. You know, purple prose being like really sort of flowery descriptions.
Right, yeah. No, I get what you mean. Like,
yeah.
They don't spare any sort of attention to all these little things. Like, they could have very easily made like the character designs a lot simpler and a lot easier to animate. But no, they went full out with like just like a Violet's main dress.
Just like her dress, yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah. No. Yeah. As for the themes that it deals with, I think it deals with them pretty okay. I think that there are some pacing issues with Violet Evergarden, because it feels very dense, and at the same time it feels like not a lot is happening, probably as a result of it being, you know, pretty dense. But like, there's that scene where she sees like Gilbert's brother or whatever, that dude, and he's just like, I see you're like pretending to be a human, and then that's when the episode ends, and then the next episode they're doing something completely different.
I know. Like, I was like, what happened here? Like, it would have made sense if that episode was placed right next to the flashback episode.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Right.
it felt to me like they might have cut and pasted a bit there in terms of the story or like the episode placement or something.
It does feel very much like there was a lot of cutting and pasting, which I don't even know if is the fault of the anime so much as it is the original work. But, you know, obviously that's neither here nor there. I've never read it. It doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
In this context, it's just the anime, and the pacing of it is...
Yeah,
it's pretty
it could be better, considering the polish that they put in everything else.
As for the, like, story of it, I like it because I have a soft spot for that particular kind of story. I don't know if it's... I feel very hit or miss about... Like, I'm very ambivalent towards the individual stories that happen, because a lot of them are good, but there are a handful of them that are just like, eh.
Yeah, and I think this one was... It was pretty well told, and you identify with the character, even though, like, they're someone who's still learning emotion. Like, you feel for them, and it's just like, you see how the other characters around Violet feel for her. They're like, oh my gosh, she has no idea, first of all, what happened to, you know, this person she treasures so much, and then second of all, she doesn't know what he meant with his last words. And what kind of,
You just realize that she doesn't understand because she's fucking 14.
A different type of coming of age, but also still related.
Yes, I think that Violet is she's a sympathetic character where I think the process of learning and processing these emotions, while, you know, most people aren't going to be in a situation where it's like, oh, I have to learn what emotions are like for the first time. I think everybody has been through a situation in which I have to learn how to deal with these feelings of grief. And moreover, I think what's interesting is that they address the fact that she's a soldier, like a child soldier, and she has to come to terms with the guilt of killing people.
Yeah.
Which I honestly didn't think they would really go into, and they didn't go into it too much, but there are some very poignant things that the anime will like show us, rather. And some poignant things that they tell us, and I think that's one of them. You know, it's... I don't even remember his name, but like Redhead Man, where he's just like, you know, you're burning up, but you don't even know it, which is like, that's a great line.
Yeah, and the fact that he then elaborates on that by saying, you know, we're all burning, we all have scars that we've just gathered, you know, from our experiences living, and at some point we have to identify that we have these scars and then move forward.
I think it's good in a lot of places. It's, to me, feels sort of like a patchwork narrative where there are just a lot of weird holes in it, where some of the individual stories don't hit quite as hard, and sometimes the pacing falters here and there.
Yeah.
And also, I personally don't understand, and I think some people like this, but I don't understand the need to go past episode 9, or rather, I don't understand why they decided that the structure of the anime would be, you know, episodes 1 through 9 is Violet learning how to be a person, and then episodes 10 through 13 are individual stories that demonstrate different things, right? Like, that to me is interesting because it feels like the first 3/4 of the show is about a character and how important everything is in relation to that character, because it's about that character's growth. And then the last 4 episodes are like Mushishi or like Kino no Tabi, where it's just like the main character really no longer matters that much.
Yeah, that was an interesting approach, because they had...
To be fair, we didn't finish the show. We stopped at episode 10.
You're talking like you've watched the last 4 episodes, and I'm sitting here like, did I miss something? Because I did not watch like the last 2.
Well, I've talked about the last 4 episodes with a couple people, but I think the thing is, some of those stories are actually really good, or at the very least, the episode that we watched was really good. Episode 10 was amazing.
Yeah,
but I just don't understand why it was there.
Yeah. It felt like, because we had that moment, right? Like during or at the end of the flashback episode or whatever, where we were like, that felt like the end of the series.
Right, exactly. It legit leaves off the episode 9 ends in a way that it feels like the series is ending.
Yeah.
It even has like poignant sort of last shots and words. But
yeah,
I think this works better if you think of it as episode 1 through 9 is the show, and then 10 through 13 are just OVAs. I don't understand why they're not OVAs in the first place.
Yeah, because they even had it at the end, like the culmination, right? They cameo each of the characters that she's met up until that point, and so it's definitely like an ending, like a final like season finale.
Yeah, I think that there is some, and this is something that I heard someone say, which is it's there so that we can get different depictions of, grief and processing that, and it explores different themes. But why, right? Like, they're good stories, they're good standalone stories, but they're just not relevant to the. And I guess like this is if you care about that sort of thing. I think normally people will see that and just be like, oh sweet, more Violet Evergarden, right? And even though it's not necessarily about Violet anymore, it's like that's still fine, I guess. I don't know. I personally take issue with it, even though I like the story.
I think if they had organized it like by saying like this is the main like book or whatever, right? It's like Violet's story, and then at the end it's just like an epilogue or like, extra or something like that, then that would have been better, rather than like the way that they incorporated it is like it's just like more of the season. And I do like the fact that at least after, she comes to terms with Gilbert, I think his name is, his death. Once she has that story with the little girl in the house and the mom, you get to see like the development of how she's moved on after that, and how she's actually learned to process grief and to feel so bad for this girl who's going to watch her mom die.
Right. And I mean, I will reiterate many times, I love that story. I think it was really well done and very touching.
Yeah.
It to me feels like, because, okay, so what it feels like to me is that the narrative is confused about what it is. It feels like to me it is centrally important that Violet is learning emotions, right? And so when episode 9 happens and, she comes to terms with her grief and processes it and learns how to have those feelings, that feels like the end, because that's where you should end a story that is about a character. It should end at that point when they come to that realization. It almost detracts from the message of the show. I guess not the message, but like it detracts from the just the general fluidity and the fluency of the show to have it go on after that. It's like it doesn't matter anymore necessarily. And obviously like the stories are nice, but it's like if your first 3/4 are about a character and her development, then why is there anything after that point, right? It's like that's after the end. That's an epilogue. It's bonus content. It's OVAs. Like, why is that there?
That's why I'm saying, like, if they just like titled it like extra, OVA, bonus, whatever, epilogue, just like something to separate it from the main series, because like the main series was all about her learning what love is, and also learning about what happened to her commander, and then they accomplished that. They had the whole summary at the end of all of her adventures, and then they keep going.
It feels like it overstays its welcome, even though the episodes themselves are quite enjoyable. Assumingly, because like I only watched episode 10. There were just so many episodes. I was just like, it's just like, I feel like that series just ended there. Like, I feel like I watched a series and then an OVA, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, whatever.
We might have missed out on something that wrapped it all together.
I hear that episode 12 is actually quite bad.
Oh.
Like, I hear it basically
episode 13?
I don't know. I don't know. I hear it's better than 12.
They could have done it all. They could have done it all, and we just are just bagging on it.
I mean, I don't know if there's a way to return to that. It just feels like we're beating a dead horse at that point.
Oh my god.
Well, that's fine. So that was Violet Evergarden. I feel like it was good, and all of the sort of meta anime stuff that's happening around it, like, it being licensed by Netflix, is really cool, and I hope that brings us more shows like Violet Evergarden, because for all the flaws it had, it was ultimately a good piece of media, enjoyable, very pretty. Tell me about Kokkoku.
So I finished it. Sue,
you finished
aren't you proud of me?
Oh my god,
yeah.
I'm so proud of you for finishing something that I didn't watch, because honestly I didn't finish the things that you didn't watch.
It's okay, I really tried my hardest to finish this one. But so it definitely by the end of it, I guess I should re-summarize what happens in this anime, which is that these people have the power to enter a single frame in time, kind of like if you were to enter a single frame of a movie and maneuver around in it. And little did I know that the entire anime would take place in this frozen moment in time.
Really?
Yeah, like I thought that they would like end up hopping around in time or whatever, like using the powers back and forth. No, once you're in, you spend the entire time in there, and then the rest of the anime is spent like basically trying to get out safely. And so so it's about this organization that is after this family who has these powers, and then they all get sucked into this frozen world. And there are these guardians of this world. They refer to them as different names. I'm just going to call them heralds.
Heralds.
That basically
here's the thing.
Not herald.
So that's what I was thinking of. I know I know it's meant to be like heralds, like HERALD, but I just imagined a bunch of like middle-aged white dudes named Harold running around. It's
named Harold.
We are the heralds. If you'll excuse me, I'm gonna write that down. I need to use that later.
HAROLD, Harold. The middle-aged white dude. Well, I should actually more accurately call them handlers. How about that? They're handlers, and they guard the people who are frozen in time and aren't able to move around, who are frozen in stasis. And the anime went in a direction I wasn't really expecting, which was that from early on you learn that the old man, who is the one who knows about the powers, and he's like the grandpa of the family. He's the only one in the family that knows about the powers. And he has like a really limited amount of instant teleportation, which is like he can teleport really short distances, but he cannot control exactly where he lands. So it's really kind of janky. And he also has pretty low stamina because he's old. They keep that up, like they keep up stuff like that, and then you learn that the rest of the family actually has powers too. And I wasn't expecting that either, because they kind of low key like don't introduce any of that stuff until like the moment happens, right? Like you find out that the father has the ability to summon a handler, even just by touching one of the frozen people, whereas normally to summon a handler you have to threaten their life. So they kind of make a joke saying that the father must be real messed up in the head in order to just summon a handler like that. And then the main character, Juri, she's the granddaughter. She has the power to push people out of the frozen world and basically turn them into stasis. And they even have like the the smallest child, like he's like the great grandson, who is able to control the handlers. You learn in the end, and that's really cool.
Oh,
Because they're basically, they look like these giant tree people, and they crush you by a flick of their hand, right? And so you find out that the small child can control them. Like, oh no, just like tell them whatever to do, and yeah. So by the end of it, you learn that the handlers are made from people who were trapped in stasis, and they basically lost their will to live because they basically, they go crazy because nothing is moving and they are stuck in this world forever. They don't know how to get out. And one of the people from like the evil society is there purely to reclaim her family because they were lost in stasis. And she was the only survivor of that. And part of that has to do with like relations with the family or whatever. And yeah, it was it ended up being an interesting anime. At the end of it, they had like a giant boss battle or whatever. That was interesting. And they kind of had a Deus Ex Machina ending where it's just like, oh, the creator of the society comes along and makes the ending happy, basically. Because it was supposed to kind of end like, with the main girl, like basically sacrificing herself. She uses her power to push everyone else out of stasis, but she cannot push herself out of stasis. And so she's stuck there. Yeah. Until she comes across the creator of basically the origin of this power or the society or whatever. And that creator is just like, oh, I go in and out of stasis all the time. Here you go. Boop. You're out.
I mean, I guess shows just have to end like that sometimes. That's just how it be.
Yeah, I mean, they at least don't completely ruin it by like, they show her in the very, very, very beginning of the anime, and you don't know how that scene is relevant until, the end when you see her again. And then but you don't see her any other time in between. So, yeah, I don't know.
Was it?
But yeah, it was a decent anime.
Okay, that was my question. Was it good?
Okay. It was okay, like, because it turned out in a way I wasn't expecting. It was a fine watch, but it was definitely like, you could tell that it was unpolished and an indie production type of thing. So, whatevs.
Okay, well, I suppose that's fair. Let's talk about Pop Team Epic, which, I mean, yeah. I feel like we don't really have to talk super much about it because it really speaks for itself, which is, I guess, kind of concerning because it's incomprehensible to mere mortal minds.
Mere mortal minds!
Pop Team Epic is a surreal comedy anime. It's really weird, but it's also really funny if you're into weird humor.
If you live on the internet, you will understand a lot of the references, but I highly doubt you'll understand all of them unless you're really that you don't go outside and you breathe electricity.
Yeah, it's like a graph of the more time you spend on the internet, the more this will be funny to you, because it is just every sort of sense of weird, jaded millennial humor, all in one delicious package of absurd strangeness. I think what's really cool about this specifically as a show is it's done by people that don't really do a lot of, it's done by a lot of like newcomers essentially. It's like newbies to anime. They have done basically everything from puppets, like felt puppets, to 3D animation, to 2D animation, to some other weird kinds of like MS Paint animation, at least twice an episode, probably.
Or like the flipbook one, that one was so cool.
The flipbook one was really amazing. And then the one where she becomes a tree, where it's like this weird sand drawing style.
Yes,
which is really neat. Yeah. It feels a lot like, and here's the thing is, it's a companion piece to the original works, because the original works is just a 4-koma, like a yonkoma. So it's a 4-panel comic and it has like a punchline, but the show itself takes a lot of liberties with that, and it has, longer bits, and it has just bastardizations of bits, and it's a faithful adaptation of the spirit of the work, I think, and it's done very well.
Yeah, it's done so well. Like I didn't know what to expect out of an anime made from like omakes and whatnot, but oh boy. Did they have a lot of creative freedom?
They really did a lot. I think they took a lot of risks and they went on a lot of limbs, and it really paid dividends because it's such an enjoyable thing to watch. And the fact that they switch out the voice actors every episode is just so funny. It's like this weird meta joke, and everything about it is weird. There's like a Japanese singer man who just appears in the last episode, not as a character, but like as himself. Like he's just green screened in there, and he's just like, I'm central to the plot of this episode. It's so weird, but it's so funny. It's a thoroughly enjoyable thing to watch.
Yeah. If you don't live on the internet, I don't know how much I can recommend it, but if you do, watch it.
Honestly, I would just say watch it, like, regardless. I think it won't land with a lot of people, and I know I've spoken to people for whom it does not land.
Yeah, exactly.
But there's no, kind of...
I don't think there's any harm.
There's no harm in trying because it's so short and...
Yeah.
Because it's a lot of different things packed into, like, 12 episodes that is repeated once for some reason. I know. There's a lot to sort of unpack about it as a cultural phenomenon, but it's just so flippant about any kind of traditional sense of really anything. It flips basically everything on its head, and nothing about it makes sense, and that's honestly kind of beautiful. I think that's all I have to say about Pop Team Epic. There's a lot of weird meta jokes in it, which don't make sense. There's also a lot of puns. Lots of puns. Yeah. It is enjoyable if you're into that. And if you're not, I mean, yeah. Some people just aren't. It's not going to be everyone's thing, but they do a lot of really cool things with it. And as a piece of animation, I think it's really cool that we get something that's so creative and so within the spirit of the work, while at the same time not being like a one-for-one translation. It's an understanding of the medium.
Yes.
In a really cool way.
Yeah, you don't get to see a lot of that much anymore. Let's see.
Yeah, let's talk about another thing that we did not finish, but it's slice of life, so every episode is more or less going to be like the sort of standard deviation of a slice of life show is very small. It's not gonna go off and go in left field. Someone dies, etc., etc. But we're talking about Hakumei and Mikochi, which is about little tiny people that live with animals in the forest, and they just live this beautiful pastoral life where they drink and eat and trade.
Yeah, I'm actually rather shocked that you didn't make us finish this one first.
I was very tempted to, but I also understood that this is the kind of thing where you can just watch an episode here and there. Whereas for Antarctica and for Violet Evergarden, that wasn't necessarily the case.
Sure, that makes sense. I mean, either way, I loved all of them. I love Hakumei to Mikochi too.
I am going to finish this show if it kills me. This show is so comfortable and so comfy.
Yes.
It's just, it feels like the sort of epitome of this pastoral genre that was kind of started by Yokohama Kaidashi Kiko, because it's just it's very stress-free. It will cleanse you. This is an anime that will cleanse you.
It will cleanse your soul.
It will cleanse your soul. It will make you love again. That's all I'm saying. I love the general aesthetic of it. It's very folklore, while at the same time being very grounded in daily life. It feels both, and part of this is the original work having such strong world building. Everything is just amazingly well crafted, and there's a lot of love that's put into both the world and the supporting characters. It really shows. It does. It's just a great watch, and I recommend this for pretty much anybody, because I don't care what you're into, I'm gonna make you watch it.
I mean, it feels like, when you're if you've ever been read a story when you were young, but it's in animation form, and it feels
Right.
so like it can lull you into a sense of security and just like chillness.
It super has a storybook aesthetic to it and to its world, because it's, inherently kind of about that. They're talking animals and tiny people, and they use coffee beans one at a time.
It's so cute because they're so small.
Kind of transitioning from that into, I think what was like a very surprising standout from this season, which already had a lot of good things in it. Which, I guess, to be fair, my one standout is A Place Further Than the Universe, but Yuru Camp, or Laid Back Camp, is honestly such a close second in already a season of really some standout things, because everything about it's slice of life taken to its logical conclusion. Everything about it is amazingly well polished. It's a return to form almost, I would say, right? It's like K-On!, where it's so good. And I mean, obviously it's not K-On!, but as a slice of life show, it's like god tier. It's like top tier, cream of the crop.
Right.
It's so comfy, and I love all the characters, and it's really funny, actually. It's like, which is, I think, understated oftentimes, that the humor of a show can sometimes super not land and not be very interesting, or it can be based in like kind of shitty things where it's like, boobs. Yo.
Yo, boobs.
But it's such a wholesome and genuinely funny show when it wants to be. The gags visually and the comedic timing of it is just impeccable, right?
Yes.
Like the scene where she's like, or the dog is like, bark, and then it like stops at the leash because the leash is like extended to its length, and then she's like, heh, and then the second one just nails her. Is amazing. It's also
I love it.
It's also just disgustingly cute. It's so cute.
Yes.
All the girls are so cute. All their designs are super cute. All their outfits are super cute, and all their expressions are super cute. Look at any GIF from this show. It's adorable.
It's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And oh my god, and the music too. Oh my god, I love it all.
The music was super stellar. I honestly thought that the music in this show was maybe the best in the season, which is interesting. It understands the tone that it wants to convey, that is simultaneously relaxed and to some extent breathtaking, because it's about nature and the sight of nature. And I said this when we were talking about it at the start, but it's just such a good understanding of how music can craft an experience. And it's so well tailored for that too.
Yeah, it is. Like the music like just makes you feel like you want to go outside and go camping with these girls.
You do. You really do.
Even if you're someone who would never want to go camping.
Yeah, this show makes me want to go camping, and I fucking hate camping. Maybe we should get a swear jar. No, I don't have enough money for a swear jar. How about a limit, like a hard limit? It's like 4
You're only
F-bombs
allowed so many
per day.
swears.
If we want to keep it PG-13, I think it's 1 F-bomb and then like as many of the other words as I want.
What?
What? That's how it works. Haven't you ever seen like a PG-13 movie? They're always like this, where they're like, oh shit, bitch, crap, ass, damn. But then there's one singular fuck.
Well, you do however you need to do to quit your habit. Just
I'll work something out. Anyway, yeah, it's everything about this show is so polished, in a way that's, I think, different from Violet Evergarden, which is visually like having an orgasm with your eyes constantly.
My God.
But it's good. Like I'm almost struggling to find words to describe how it's good. It's just technically proficient in every aspect, to the point where it feels invisible how good it is. Right? This is the kind of show that you can put on and relax and just not think about anything and just watch.
Yes.
Watch these cute girls have their camp antics. Makes you want to go camping. I don't like camping. I don't like the outdoors, but I do like food, and that would entice me to go out. If somebody was like, hey, we're gonna go camping, and I'll be like, they were just like, yeah, but we're also gonna have hot pot, and I'm like, oh, you got me.
You got me. You said
You
the
got me
secret, the
there.
magic words.
You said the magic word. That's honestly, those are the magic words to get me to do anything. It's free food. That's it. Those 2 words. Free food. Yeah,
boy.
it was the most healing show I watched this season. Like, it was so good that I made us watch all of it, even though it's a slice of life show. There's no serialized narrative to it necessarily. Though there are some consistencies in the characters as the episodes go on. It's not like 1, 1, 1, 1. It's like 1.5, 2.5. This metaphor is getting out of hand. I don't really know what I'm saying anymore.
I just was gonna let you keep going.
No, I understand. I understand that I completely lost track of where I wanted to be with that, but that's okay. But yeah. Those are all the things that we finished, but we're going to talk about some of the things that we didn't finish in a lightning round. So I will go first. Essentially, we're going to sum up the show in 2 sentences or less, and we're going to say whether it's good, bad, enjoyable, etc., etc., etc. We're going to start with Miss Koizumi Loves Ramen, which, if you like ramen or food or girls, watch it, because it's about a cute girl that wants to get in another girl's pants by eating ramen with her a lot. Good.
And the
Enjoyable.
next one is
lovely.
Okay. You know what? You only had 2 sentences. Calm it down. Next one is Emiya-san, the Fate series spinoff. That's a slice of lifey cooking anime, and it has a lovely art style. It's full of cooking. It is what it is. If you like cooking, you don't even have to like Fate. You just like cooking and cute animation. I'd watch it. I think it's good.
I watched a couple episodes of Overlord 2. It's isekai, but different. Watch it, because it's fun. And also, big skeleton man. Who doesn't get the appeal of a big skeleton man? It's good.
I feel like this is like run-on sentences.
I only do run-on sentences. My sentences don't have periods. Only semicolons. Infinite semicolons.
Oh, jeez. Says the English major. Okay, so Cardcaptor Sakura Clear Card Arc is exactly what it is. It's Cardcaptor Sakura. They animated the new arc, and it's lovely and very shoujo-y for small girls. And yeah, if you like it, if you like Cardcaptor Sakura, like the OG nostalgia feels, watch it. It's good.
Death March, the Parallel World Rhapsody, which is a mouthful and a half. It's the most light novel of the light novel titles, because it almost makes sense, but at the same time almost doesn't. And it's just a lot of words that sound cool put together. The actual show is isekai, but it's sort of like second wave isekai, and it eschews normal power fantasies of the main character by instead having it be more focused around slice of life and pastoral fantasy, rather than anything big or grand or world-shatteringly different. It is
vaguely
good.
only got closer to what you were saying. What?
It is good if you like isekai. It is
Okay.
good if you like slice of life. That's it.
Okay.
Junji Ito Collection, which was Junji Ito, but bad. Don't watch it.
I watched another episode of it to give it another chance, and it didn't go up in quality. So next is Karakai Karakai Jouzu no Takagi-san. And it's a cute anime about cute kids. They obviously have feels and crushes on each other, but one of them likes to tease the other one. The boy tries to get back at the girl who's clearly way more clever than him, and he fails all the time, and it's cute and funny. If you like that kind of thing, then watch it, because it's lovely. It's cute. It's good.
Darling in the Franxx. We're not going to talk about Darling in the Franxx. I'm going to make Renny watch it, and then we're going to talk about it at the end of next season, because it's still airing.
No, I don't want to watch anymore.
We have to watch it. It's an important piece of media, or it's an important piece of anime. It is important to anime as a medium that we contemporary notions of anime as a medium that we watch it and discuss it because it is
Because it's sex ed, the anime?
because of the cast essentially of the creators, of the writers and the world builders and the animators. We'll talk about it later. I know Renan will complain, but we'll talk about it later.
You like, we're only purely watching out of respect towards the studios. That's what I'm gaining the sense of.
It looks pretty. And finally, we have Sanrio Boys, which is bad. Don't watch it.
Wow, you didn't even watch more than one episode, Sue.
I didn't, but that's all I needed.
Yo, what about the shoujo one? You were gonna make me watch that. The shoujo daddy one.
Oh, okay. That one is cute, kind of, if you can get past the conceit. If you can get past the premise of the show and how kind of weird it is, it's a touching story of a young woman learning about feelings for the first time. It just happens to be that, the object of her affections is just a bumbling old dad man, which I guess, like, why not? Sometimes that's just how it be. That's cute and pretty. So if you can get past the premise, I would say watch that.
Sure.
And then there's a lot of other things that we only watched like a single episode or two of because there were just so many things that came out and really only so many of them worth watching. I think Gakuen Babysitters is actually pretty good though, so I might recommend watching that.
Yeah, that one's lovely.
Well, that's it. I think we did it.
We did it.
I think that's everything that's worth talking about. What are you up to this week?
Oh, I have streams on Friday now. I actually have a semi-schedule, which is I'm going to have to try and keep hold of it, is streaming on Friday evenings. And lately I've just been streaming creative, so it's just gonna be artsus for me. And I think that's all I'm gonna be up to. It's gonna be I'm gonna try and take it easy this week. So yeah. What about you, Soup?
I'm a schoolboy. I do school things. There is an Overwatch event coming up that is PvE, and I'm very excited for it. And really, that's about it.
Okay.
So, nothing too exciting. Yeah, start of the quarter, it's syllabus week. But I've already read a novel. I read Carmen Buyosa's Texas the Great Theft, which is...
How was it?
It's good. It's a speculative fiction piece, technically, about a lot of... listen, it's too much to describe here right now, but it's essentially, what if Texas belonged to Mexico still? Kind of.
So, speculative fiction is basically like what if types of books? Like hypothetical
It's basically
scenarios?
any fiction that asks the question, what if this?
Right, okay.
So sci-fi, fantasy, or both speculative fiction, in a sense.
Okay. Interesting.
And according to some theories, they're also both historical fiction. But that's neither here nor there. That's literary theory. That's my actual day job, ? It's school. I don't know if you count it as a job. It's an occupation.
Not really... you have like job hours sometimes, but it's like...
It's not a job because I don't get paid for it. It's an occupation.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. I see how this works. Yeah. My occupation is student of literature. I'm also a part-time weeb and also a part-time warrior monk. I'm not actually. I think that's it. I'm saying that in a podcast.
I think you're full-time weeb. You're a liar.
That's my secret. I'm always a weeb. Akechigoro, don't be soft, be hard like me.
No!
Nah, it's jokes. I'm joking. Akechigoro, eat your fucking heart out.